Hey everybody, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, columnist Sandy Graham, back again. It's been a few months. I think our last one of these was maybe the spring game, before or
Yeah,
after,
yeah.
somewhere around then.
I donned my Vince Lombardi coaching hat. It's one of the few football-related caps I possess. So.
For a minute, I thought this was Westfield, and somewhere I didn't.
It's the right colors for Westfield. But
Close.
it's one of the reasons I became a Packer fan.
Yeah.
Actually. So.
That makes sense. Well, we're back on football, Andy. It's been a summer. Learned a little bit about this team.
Yeah.
Looking forward to Saturday. Southern Illinois is coming to town, opening the season at Memorial Stadium.
Interesting team.
Yeah, it is.
They've got a Mike Iannata, the quarterback, is a Division I kid. Initially, went to Eastern Michigan. They're traditionally one of those FCS teams that nobody really wants to play. Historically, they've been a very fine program. Only moderate success of late.
Yeah,
I think it was 6-6 last year, I believe.
They've had three straight non-losing seasons. They haven't been to the playoffs in the FCS for I wrote this last night. I should remember this. I want to say 8 years, something like that. It's been a little bit, but they've been respectable at that level. Playing a really good conference down there, Missouri Valley.
They do, and they put kids into the NFL. They just graduated a 3-time All-American tight end,
Michael Pruitt.
And it's interesting. They're a little bit on paper like Indiana in some ways. They have a combined total of 9 starters among their starting wide. 9 starts among their starting wideouts. The 3 guys, 8 of which belong to one guy.
Yeah.
They've got 3 fifth-year seniors in their defensive line. Their defensive front's probably one of the strengths of the team. They should be able to bring a crowd over a little bit if they, that's one of those things where, Indiana needs a little help, I think, in that regard. So going into the game tomorrow, because it's going to be in the 90s, and it's going to be a bit of a chore for some people to drive. I was glad to see IU put out a kind of an advisory today about some alternate routes or whatever. They also are going to sync the lights on 37 and make them green longer to try to expedite traffic. So, but it's one of those games where people should leave early, including if they're coming from Edwardsville or Carbondale. So.
Yeah, no, that's as far as that's concerned, the traffic and the travel and all that. It's going to be messy. There's no doubt about it. And the best advice anyone can give folks at IU, just frankly common sense, is leave early.
Yeah, leave early and tailgate longer.
Yeah,
it's not really a sacrifice.
They're actually going to open up the Hoosier Village a little earlier than usual this year, just to kind of encourage folks to come out here a little early. Obviously, you can't go wrong with some of the eateries here in Bloomington, bars, and just the tailgate lots themselves. So get here early. That's the message if you come, because it's going to be a hot and frankly sticky and miserable day to kind of sit on the metal bleachers. But if you do come, you're gonna be treated to the debut of Jordan Howard for one, the return of Nate Sudfeld. What we both believe is a faster, talented, more skilled front 7 for IU.
It's going to be, you're going to see Kevin Wilson's best team in Bloomington since he got here. I think that's how he feels about it. I think that's the consensus of those who cover the team. That doesn't guarantee anything. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. As with any team, you got to watch them line up and play a little bit. And openers aren't always all that revealing. They can be pretty squirrely. You could probably count on not everything firing on all cylinders right away. Some timing issues, just getting in sync again. But this team, I think, look, Indiana's had 3 straight recruiting classes that were ranked in the top half of the Big Ten by Rivals.com. And at some point, if that's accurate, if that's not misleading, we are going to start seeing results on the field. I think potentially that could have happened a bit last year, but with the quarterback injuries and whatnot, it wasn't going to happen. And once you got to midseason and the Iowa game debacle happened with the injuries, everybody understood that the rest of the season was going to be a struggle in terms of winning games. But I do think that we saw a defense improve somewhat. I do think that Indiana was still able to run the ball, despite the fact that everybody knew that they couldn't pass and had to run the ball. Tevin Coleman still went over 2,000 yards. The team didn't quit. That was a good sign. I think the team bought in and believed. I think the fact that every coach returned, even though there were some job offers out there for them, tells me they believe. And just, I don't know about you, Mike, but just watching Kevin Wilson. We've gotten to know Kevin a bit over the last few years. Obviously, his demeanor, he seems very relaxed, very confident to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that's what I think.
I do. I think if there are any real, true concerns about this team, once again, it goes kind of the secondary where I think the only start returning is Chase Dutra's one start against Maryland last year. I mean,
Correct.
A lot of freshmen, a lot of guys who've been here for 1 year of actual playing experience. That to me is kind of what I wrote about for Saturday's paper. I mean, the story of this season is really going to be about the secondary's ability to, frankly, tread water at times, just to kind of keep the ball in front of them, not get totally exposed by the pass. Because there are a lot of other areas on this team where I think this is far and away, for the first time, it really looks like a Big Ten team up front on both sides. You have a true, potentially, in many other years, an all Big Ten quarterback, Nate Sudfeld. Receivers, there's an experience there, but just talent-wise, it's all there. I mean, you have the bodies, you have the skill types. There's a lot to like on this team. I think it just kind of comes down all season long. It's going to be kind of tracking the secondary's ability to, not get totally exposed. I mean, you have athletes there. I mean, granted, it's an experience and youth, but I like the athletes they have. Rashard Fant responded to some challenges over the summer. They kind of demoted him to number 2 on the depth chart to what coaches say they want to see more physical play. They want to see him become more than just a cover guy. And apparently he's passed all those tests that they wanted to see over the spring and summer. But I like some of the young guys, Dre Brown, Devontae Williams, very intriguing guy, and Ben Bach too, who's a former walk-on who spring and summer was fighting right up there with the number 1 group. So, and Noel Padmore too, another really athletic young guy who's you kind of hope he would kind of come along this year too.
Yeah, those were 4. He had Padmore and Fant was a 3-star and a 4-star out of the South. They were fairly highly regarded guys coming in. You got John Crawford and Jamil Cook at the safety positions to back up. I think what you said is true, and I think the description really works on both sides of the ball. The key to Indiana's season for me at this juncture, looking at it before they actually kick it off, is can Indiana keep other people from catching the ball, and can Indiana catch the ball?
Yeah.
Both of those things. I think that Indiana's coaches like the young skill they have on both sides of the ball, but it's unproven skill at this point. Indiana's going to start Simi Cobbs and Ricky Jones at the wide positions.
Yep.
Both of them are still essentially unproven players, even though both of them have talent. And then
Mitchell
in the
Page,
slot, you got Mitchell Page, who hasn't started before. He's a guy that we really like, and watching him in practice, he runs very precise routes and he catches the ball.
I like what they have at the slot, just overall. I mean, we've kind of talked about this. You don't have the lightning quick explosion of a Shane Wynn type, but really that's not what Indiana really does to utilize their slot guys. It's more,
it's a possession. Makes he's a guy that should be kind of the safety valve, where if the quarterback needs him, he's going to be open. He's going to be able to find him. I think Mitchell Page, one of those type of guys, a very talented athlete, by the way. Even though he's not big and he wasn't highly recruited necessarily. But he's on scholarship now, and there's a reason why. I mean, he's somebody that came out of Guerin Catholic, didn't get a lot of the offers, but he's an athlete. He's somebody that we watched him play in the city golf tournament this summer. He could golf. He's a heck of a basketball player, apparently, according to people I talked to.
Good athlete all around.
Just a really good athlete.
And when you kind of talk about that safety valve, too, you have the deepest tight end group we've seen under Wilson.
Absolutely. With
Corsaro, Fuchs, pass-catching guys. They like the blocking they get from a Cooper or Friend.
Yeah.
And they can do a lot there. And as you've kind of said a lot of times, I mean, there's the ability with those tight ends and the running ability of a Jordan Howard type where you can really pound it through the tackles.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, like the game against Southern Illinois, for example, to get back to that, why do I think Indiana probably is going to win that game? Well, there are a lot of reasons why I think that. One of which, however, is the overall strength and depth of both lines. Indiana can play a second offensive line and can play a second defensive front and not lose a whole lot. And it's been a long time, ever since maybe the Bill Mallory years, that I've really felt comfortable saying that. Tomorrow on a really hot day against an FCS team, even if Indiana doesn't start well, I think eventually Indiana takes control of the game because they can line up 2 tight ends, they can rotate linemen, and they can keep coming at you, and eventually they're going to wear an FCS team down a little bit. I also like what I've seen from Jordan Crawford and Divine Redding catching the ball out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about safety valve and Sudfeld being able to find guys. I think both of those guys can catch the ball. I think it's going to be a really intriguing season. Obviously, it's season 5 under Kevin Wilson. Most people look at this as being perhaps a pivotal year in terms of his program. I think he's got his best team. I think he's got a chance to turn the corner. You're not going to see. I'm just listening to the Indianapolis radio. Nobody in Indianapolis gives him much of a shot to even go to a bowl. Really, I mean, just that's kind of what I hear from up there.
I think it's easy to kind of, and this is kind of on the national
level.
People
are very dismissive.
We've seen this team through the spring. We've seen them now for a couple times a week. Every week this summer. Just that up close look. I kind of mentioned earlier. It looks like a Big Ten team. It's faster than any team he's had. Their ability to make plays in space will determine a lot. But they have guys who can make plays, and the more I've seen of this team this summer, the more confident I am that at least 6 wins are possible. I think it's a 6-6 team, but I think they're a lot more likely to go 7-5 than 5-7.
That's what I said in my column for tomorrow too. I said 6-6, but 7-5 is more likely than 5-7. I really believe that, and I think that if you look at the schedule, I mean, the schedule is very difficult. But it's also conducive. I mean, one can look at it rationally and find 6-7 wins, and I think that. At least potentially. And I think that, the non-conference will be very important. I mean, all 4 of those games are winnable, and they're all losable. I mean, I think that, we saw Florida International win on the road, big upset against Central Florida last night. We saw Western Kentucky win at Vanderbilt.
With their defense,
With their defense rather than their offense. That's right. So that tells me both of those teams can cause issues. And then the other non-conference games, a road trip to an ACC team at Wake Forest. So how Indiana fares through those games is going to be very important. But I think even if they go 2-2, which I think is kind of the worst case scenario,
it is.
I still think they could get to a bowl. I mean, I really do.
Tough.
I mean, it would be more difficult, but I mean, they get Michigan in, they get Iowa at home, neither of which looks exactly invincible at this point on paper. They get Rutgers at home, and then they finish up at Purdue, where they're always going to have a shot. In terms of the bucket game, that's always going to be a game that's in play, I think, for both sides.
We got to end this, but you've thrown this out too. The Penn State road game too is that's frankly that can go in Indiana.
Mark my word, anybody who saw the last 2 games between Indiana and Penn State and looked at it objectively, I think would be hard pressed to say Penn State is just overtly a better team. I don't think so.
It's going to be an interesting season. I think we both agree it's going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to be pretty fun too. So join us tomorrow. We'll be out there, and we'll catch up afterwards. See you guys.